So, hello everybody, and welcome to what is it? It's April, isn't it? I'm losing track of the months with not leaving the house. So, welcome to the April guest expert call. Now, all of us, of course, are affected by coronavirus, but some businesses you'd probably agree are more affected than others, and the live event industry is one that has been particularly hit by coronavirus. Even ourselves, just a few weeks ago, we were in Dallas at Outrageous Marketers Live, and of course, the night before the event itself, all the cancellations started. We were lucky; we managed to fill a room at the event. We didn't have as many people as we'd expected because people just didn't want to get on planes. People didn't want to be in a room with a few hundred other people. We'd all been planning to be at another major event last week, and we all said, no, we don't want to be in a room with 10,000 people from all over the world, because obviously it's a risk. But yeah, so the live event industry is one of those that you'd think, what's it going to do when nobody wants to attend live events? Well, that's what we're about to find out with an old friend of Bill and mine and Mara's, Sherrie Sokolowski. Sherrie, well, I'll let Bill introduce her in a moment, but I first met Sherrie a couple of years ago when we did the live event for Outrageous Campaigns Volume 1 back in San Diego. And we couldn't have run it without somebody like Sherrie helping us to organize it, or more specifically, without Sherrie to organize it for us. So I'm very pleased to have her on, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she says we should be doing about live events in a virtual world. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Bill, who knows a lot more and can introduce her even more.
Well, and I will in just 1 second, but I want to make one other comment that you just mentioned, was the fact that we had our own live event. It was a couple months earlier, okay? And even though we kept losing people, the people that were there, they appreciated us that we still had it, because we really gave them a real value while they were there, when we were teaching them things like that. So my point is, even if people aren't having events now, and eventually people will have events again, okay? People should really come to the events, and they should be coming to our next event, okay? Because all the three of us have been talking about how we're going to get it even better, and I promise you it will be even better. But with that said, I'll tell you a little bit about Sherrie, okay? And I know some of it probably you already know about him, because when we sent over this email out, which is this one right there, a lot of it talks about Sherrie and what we're going to talk about today. But one of the things which was an interesting about my interaction with Sherrie, okay? Because when I first created GLAZER Kennedy, and I started to do growing such a larger business, okay? Eventually, I had to say to myself, I need an assistant, okay? So I found Sherrie that way as my assistant, okay? And then for many years, as we started having our own events, and we hired other people to run our events, eventually, Sherrie learned so much about it that she was actually running our events for that company, GLAZER Kennedy. So, and which really gets to our next thing about this whole thing, about the fact that one of the ways you could learn how to be a great run events is you start running events for other people, okay? And then that's really where she got her biggest information about how to do this. And I'm sure if Sherrie and I would just sit together and talk about all the things we did at those events and who was there and on and on and on, it went on forever to talk about this thing and we could still talk about it today, because there's a lot of interesting things that happened while we were there, including one, and Sherrie probably will remember this, one of our presenters is a very well-known person. She didn't feel well, so she didn't come at all. So we had to figure out a way to get around that, okay? Which basically came to the point was I had to do more presenting, and so did Dan Kennedy had to do more presenting to fill out that space. But with that said, I just want to talk about Sherrie. So as you heard, he was already my assistant, okay? And by the way, she's still my assistant. I still use her very much to help me in many ways, okay? Including the fact that most of the times when I'm at an event, I need to have a PowerPoint, and I send it over to Sherrie, and Sherrie creates my PowerPoints for me. But with that said, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And I'm actually going to actually make sure I don't miss any of it, okay? So the very first thing on here, and everybody should have this already, is how her clients hosting events, big and small, okay? Actually, she could probably talk a little bit about what that means by big and small, are handling and hosting their events right now in light of COVID-19. So that's number one. Number two is what we need to know about hosting live events once it's safe to travel again. That's number two. Number three is, and how to make our live event better, whether you are hosting them virtual or in person. Okay, which as my point is, Rob and I, we once were on our one event, which was a virtual summit one, okay? And we did it that way, and we had 5,400 people actually watching it over 5 days, okay? So that's another way to go through that. Now, I also want to make a couple more comments. At the very end, we're going to let everybody the opportunity to ask any questions, okay? And when they ask the questions, the best person to answer the questions is actually Sherry, but we might add a little bit more in there to answer the questions as well. And also, Sherry, since I talked to her about a couple of days before, Sherry has agreed to do something very special for people who are thinking about their events. And there's like two options that people will have. And so you'll find out about it at the end, about something special that Sherry is going to do for people in two different ways. Okay. So with that said, Sherry, welcome back. Okay.
It's great to be back, Bill. It's like a little mini family reunion this morning with all of us. It's nice to be back. Thank you. And thank you for that introduction. And yeah, I agree with you, Bill. It was the best way for me to learn how to do events, was just hands-on. You know, I don't know if you remember who you had hired to do events, but she trained me so well to learn all the behind the scenes and the logistics of dealing with the hotel. But you also taught me the logistics of what it took to really strategize and plan out the events. You know, the mapping out the agenda and the proper way to sell from stage, and how we need to make sure it's important to have networking functions at the event, and why, and how we can make it a great experience. And, you know, I got to learn a lot. It's been huge for me, because now I can help my clients based on the information I learned from you.
Yeah, just give a couple examples of after I no longer was involved with GLAZER Kennedy. I'll leave it that way, okay? Some of the people that were in my mastermind group that needed you to actually run their own mastermind groups. Give me a couple names of those people.
Oh, yeah, sure. Ryan Dice, I helped him with TNC in 2012. And Russell Brunson, his first 5 funnel hacking live events. He hired me to work with him and his group on that. Those were the 2 big names. And then really what's happened from there is they would continue to refer people to me, because they would have people say, hey, who helped you do your event? I need help too. So they would continue to refer clients that came from their world as well.
Right. So you gave 2 examples, going back to this thing about big and small. Two of them were 2 big ones that you mentioned, was Ryan and Russell. Okay. Mm-hmm. And actually I spoke at TNC. I think Ryan always calls it TNC in the air. And yeah. And that one, you were there, sure, you actually ran it, okay. And yeah. So, and I could see how big they were. I mean, truth of the matter is, if you look at Ryan's events now, they're much larger than any event we ever created at all. And in many ways, I was happy about that, because you have to handle all those people. But also talk a little bit about like some smaller events that you run. Give me a couple examples. You don't have to mention who they are, but the kind of events that would be smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can actually name the name, because he came from your group too, was Dr. Scott Gray. And his unique approach of doing smaller events is he only had 10 to 15 people in the room, but they were high dollar events. So you don't have to necessarily have a big event to create profit. You know, his small events were people who pay tens of thousands of dollars to be there. It was more like a boot camp workshop, where they got hands-on learning from him right there. And he brought one or two other experts in that would teach on another kind of part of the topic that was related to stem cells and how they can use that within their chiropractic practices. So, that's one example of it. Another one was a dental practice where they were teaching people who were in the dental industry, whether they were just getting out of dentistry school, whatever you call that, and they were looking to start their own practice. How can they do it right? And this was anywhere from 20 to 30 people in the room, and they were teaching them the A to Z on what they needed to do to create a practice. And my client at that point had every single person within his company that could teach them everything they needed. Like if I want to start my own dental practice, but I don't know where to buy real estate. I don't know if I should, go from scratch, buy a building, redo it or what. And he had every single component that you could think of that you needed in that event. And every single person got up there and taught. So those are a couple of examples of small events that can really bring in great profit for you.
Right. So why don't we first start about the thing that's going on in the world right now, okay, which is COVID-19, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And actually right now that I'm looking at Mara and Rob, we actually, for our event, we came together 2 days before, okay? And the main reason we came together then was to start figuring out how to build this business larger and larger. But during those 2 days, we kept losing people that were coming to the actual event, okay? And then, by the time we actually started the first day of the live event, we were planning to be about 200 people there. And at the very first day, we're probably in the low 90s, okay? And
no, we were about 50.
Well, at the end, about
no,
50.
On the first day, we lost so many attendees that we were about 50 on the first day.
Oh, they looked like more than 50 to me, but I know the last day
we did a good job facing the room. We learned that from Sherrie.
Right. And I'm not even sure, and if Rob and Mara would agree with me, but we maybe should have canceled our event. But by the time we found out about it, it was already at the hotel we were at, So I don't know if we would have still run it. Okay. But let's get back to this. So first question to Sherrie is, based on what you see for your clients with COVID-19 that's going on, okay? Mm-hmm. What do you see that's going on about that with your events?
The big thing right now is that they're pivoting to do virtual. And again, it depends on what their plan is for the year and how the actual live event works within their business. So the one client who is in front of their clients every 13 weeks or so they have an event about 4 times a year. It was super important because it was based on their deliverables to their clients that they stay in front of them and deliver content. So they've created a virtual event, and we actually did a virtual day, like a discovery day last week, where they were it was kind of an opportunity for us to test it, to see if the platform that we chose was going to work well and how we can work on the interaction, because as we all know, live events is an opportunity for all of us to interact. So we were trying to figure out the best way to do that virtually, and we played around with that in chat rooms and breakout sessions and such, and it worked well. But it was also an opportunity for him to reach out to other people that weren't scheduled to come to the live event in May, but want to hear more about what he's doing at this time. So it allowed him an opportunity to reconnect with people that were part of his group back a few years prior, and brand new people that were just hearing about what he was doing. And so now those people could become members to come to the actual virtual event. So that's a little golden nugget for people listening to this, is that if you do plan to do virtual events, before you do the big one, have a little one, and then try to open it up to more people in your industry so that they can hear more about you before they have an opportunity to really learn from you. So that's one thing. The other thing that they're doing is they're just doing like webinars, an opportunity either bi-weekly or once a week to get in front of their clients to teach them something new that's going on, just so that they stay relevant with what's happening with COVID-19 and how they can help their businesses, and kind of do a mind shift of what you can do right now, and also to stay in front of them, because everyone is staying at home right now, and they're bored, and they're looking, and they're waiting and watching to see who they can learn from. So if you aren't staying in front of them somehow, some way, they're going to go somewhere else. So I've been working with my clients to find multiple ways to do this. So virtual events, webinars, Facebook Lives, and just the old pick up the phone and give them a call and just say, hey, I hear you've got these many cases going on in your area. How are you doing? And just make sure that they know you care.
Right. And to all of our alliance members right now, last week, we asked our alliance members to get on the phone with us and to get some hot seats for them. Okay. And every one of them, basically, the reason why they needed hot seats is because they were all concerned about how they're going to handle this issue about what's going on with COVID-19. Okay.
Exactly.
You think it's about so many people right now, they can't, they stay home. They can't come to the office, on and on. I mean, it's really changed a lot. I mean, most people who are in the United States, they probably even understand this as well, they're like, because I know in Maryland where I'm at, okay, you can't even go to a restaurant. Okay. I mean, the restaurants are not people to come. And if people own a restaurant, their business is almost out of business. Okay. Or they lose a lot of their employees. Okay. And that goes on and on and on. So definitely this issue about COVID-19 is definitely the biggest thing on their head is COVID-19. Okay. In their business. Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about a couple more things about this. Okay. So we already talked about the fact that if you can't have a live events, that you looking at different ways to actually deliver it. And one of them is through virtual. Okay. And as we mentioned earlier before that, when Rob and I created the virtual summit, that was all online. Okay. And we got a lot of people to actually be on there. It was, as we said, it was a little over 5,400 people on there. Okay. And we did it through, we sent it through Zoom, because is how we actually delivered it, through Zoom. So let's move from there. Okay. The next thing I would say, and this question comes to you, Sherrie, is eventually we will have events again. People will have events again.
Yes.
So let's talk about a couple questions about this. Okay. The first question I would have to you, Sherrie, is why would attendees want to go to a live event?
Great question. And I have a great answer. For that camaraderie of being around like-minded people, especially right now. I mean, that was the big thing you always taught, and entrepreneurs, for a big example, is they're at home with their families because they can't be in their office or at their business, and they're around their family, which is a good thing. It's a really good thing to be around your family, but they're not of a like mind that you are. So you cannot wait to get out and be out in front of other people who have the same mindset as you do in regards to your business. They may be at home and they're like trying to come up with new ideas and innovative ways to stay relevant and to stay ahead of the curve of what's happening with COVID-19 and to keep their business going, but their family most necessarily won't have the information they need. So they're seeking someone else out. So it's just a buildup, and they're looking on podcasts, they're looking on webinars and other virtuals that they can be on to learn that from. But what they're not getting is they're not getting the interaction. I'm not talking about the physical hugs, because I'm sure a lot of people, once we get back to normal, aren't going to want to hug many people. They're probably still going to be doing the elbow pumps or the, hey, how you doing kind of a thing. But we're still around one another, and we're still going to want to make those connections. If you think back to live events when they were happening, most people, especially at the big ones that we were talking about at TNC and Funnel Hacking, most of the time they wanted to buy the recordings right away as soon as they got there, so that they could spend the time in the hallways networking, because that's where they made their money. So, they would go there and they would learn the content. And if they didn't necessarily need to be in the room to hear it, They were going to be in the hallway meeting with other people to build that network and that relationship, which is why a lot of people don't like to give out their agenda at a live event, because they don't want people to not be in the room. So I think that's the big thing is people are going to be looking for that networking opportunity to meet up, especially now, because they're going to want to learn from X, Y, and Z. What were you doing during this time to survive? What can I learn from you? And they are going to want to get out in front of them and talk about it. They can't do it this way as much as they can do in person.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100% with what you just said. I mean, even like for the very first day at our live event, okay, and at that point we had what we called the VIPs were there, okay, for that. And also we brought the people that already were invited in our mastermind group where they got hot seats there, okay. But when they were there, the people in the VIP groups and even the members of the mastermind group, I said to everybody, by the way, how many of you here are running events for yourself, okay? And I would say, and Rob, you probably looked, and Mary, you looked around as well. I would say it was about 50 to 60% of the people were running events for their own business, okay? So it was like, and my point about that is the fact that to run a live event where people are together, so much more value comes to people by being at live events, okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, actually, I'm going to ask, I asked Rob, I'm going to jump into this to Rob, like, you know, why would somebody actually want to be at a live event to be able to get more value than actually just being on Zoom or something like that?
Well, one of the things is the obvious one, which is that when you're on Zoom, it's so easy for people to be distracted. They can be checking their Facebook, they can be checking their email, they can be doing whatever else. But the other thing is you never know who else is going to be in the room that you'll meet during one of the breaks, at lunch, in the evening, or whatever. It could be a new customer, it could be a new supplier, it could be a new JV partner. It could be just somebody who you're going to be connecting to and asking for help and advice over the next, however many years. But
Right.
You don't get that human connection unless you're actually in the room with them. And
Right. I mean, Rob, you would agree with me, during both of the books that we worked together on, okay, there were several of the people that talked about their campaigns and how they got real value by people at their own events, okay, at different levels, okay, people were there, okay. But my point is, and I think everybody would agree, including Sherrie, very much so, at live events, people could actually get more value. They get the opportunity to talk to each other, create more clients for themselves, and just feel better about the fact that what they're at the event that they're at, that they feel like, I'm glad that I came because of that, So, I mean, live events are a very, very important part of the business. Now, listen, I'll make one little other comment, which is kind of interesting. Then I'm going to get back to Sherrie. But even listen later today, okay, the members that are our mastermind group, when we first told them they would join to 3 times a year for 2-day meetings, okay, they were planning to come to 2-day meetings. Well, now tonight we're having members in our mastermind group. We're having them on Zoom because we're not going to be able to get people together right now so we're actually delivering it for our mastermind members to do it online. So My question to Sherrie is this: over the years, since you've run so many events, okay, and regardless whether they're big or small events, okay, what is the reason why people should have events when people are ready to have events again?
Well, it brings a couple of things up. One, going back to the previous question, will tie into this one, and that is building trust, right? That is another reason why you want to have or consider having a live event. If you haven't done one before, or you've done them and it just hasn't been successful for you, the best way, in my opinion, to build trust with your followers is through a live event, because they get to see you and meet you personally. They get to see and meet your tribe, your followers who do trust you personally, and talk to them. And it's also a great way for them to see what your community is all about. They can't see what your community is all about on a Zoom call. because they're not in front of your community. Oh, you're just looking at the fake pictures, or if there is a picture of someone, but it's not a great way to do it. So trust at a live event is great. And that's a reason why you should have a live event, because if you're all about building your business and building your brand, let's say you have a new product, service that you want to launch, doing it at a live event is one of the best ways to do it. And if you do it in front of a live audience, it's all that better, because they're going to get they're going to feed off of the excitement from everyone else in the room. I've seen this happen so many times. I mean, Russell is a pro at it because he learned from you, and he will even admit that from stage, that he will build this excitement by having his other people that have been successful with him come up on stage and get awards and talk and speak about what Russell has done for them live in front. So they get to see and feed off of this excitement. You can't do that if you're not at a live event. So it's a great way to build that trust, is a great way to build the excitement, and it's a great way to build the experience that they're not going to be able to get anywhere else. I'm sure with your virtual mastermind tonight, they're going to get content. They're going to get great value, right? But they're not going to be able to get that great experience as they would meeting in person. And I know when people are ready to get back out there, that's what they're looking for the most. And if you stay relevant with them now virtually, then you're going to be building off of that content of like, okay, I've taught you this. Now let's meet live so I can really show you how to implement it. So live events are a great way also to show your tribe how to implement what you're teaching them. And that will also, again, build that trust and build that value.
Right. So far what we've discussed, okay, just to sort of overview this a little bit, and then is the fact that at a live event, when people are ready for a live event again, okay, okay, because everybody right now is afraid to get out of their house, okay, but when people are comfortable to get out of their house, they're going to, not only will they be feeling good about the fact that they can come to an event, okay, but also by coming to the event, they'll actually get delivered more value to their own business that way, okay? I mean, it's one way to do it on Zoom, okay? You can do it that way on Zoom and things like that. But at the same time, you know, at a live event, I mean, two things happen with that, which is interesting. Number one is to get more value. Number two is, and Sherrie, you remember this, a lot of the people that were coming, they would also purchase an event, another person to come with them, okay? So,
Exactly.
and a lot of those people not only would come to the event as a friend of theirs in some way, or they do business in some way, not as an employee, but somebody else who's actually has, but they want to come there to learn what they're learning there. And a lot of them, as you recall, Sherrie, they would schedule, and at that time we called it GLAZER Kennedy, they would schedule to be a member of GLAZER Kennedy. So it wasn't only the original member, it was somebody who brought a member with them that became a member at the live event, okay? So,
Exactly.
so having a live event really makes a huge change to businesses in so many ways, okay?
There's one thing we didn't talk about, which is sales, right? So another reason to have a live event when we can have them again is, I think all of us would agree that live events are probably one of the best sales opportunities that you'll have inside of your organization. And if you went live versus virtual and delivered the same exact presentations, offer, I would venture to guess that you would convert better live and in person more than virtual. Right now, virtual is our life. And so we have talked about this in the Alliance. We can't stop marketing. We can't stop running our businesses. So that's what we're doing right now. But when we can go back to real life and in person, then it's going to be our one of our best sales opportunities for our companies.
It
The other
is.
thing sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add to that. Yeah.
So was I, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mara 100%. And it all comes back to strategy on how your event's going to be, right? So the big adjustment pivot that people are trying to figure out is if they've got a live event that was 2 or 3 days and then they have to make it virtual, no one is going to sit in front of their computer for 8 hours, 3 days straight. You're just going to lose people. Like Rob said earlier, it's the attention span. If they got so much going on at home, kids knocking on the door, whatever, different time zones. When you're at a live event, everyone's on the same time zone. They may not feel like it, but they're all in the same time zone, right? So it gives you an opportunity to not just sell once. And that's what I teach my clients. You don't just use that one opportunity, that 1 hour, that 190-minute session on those 2 or 3 days to sell. You sell throughout the entire time if you do it properly, so that by the time you do sell it live from stage, people are already ready to buy. They're like, just give me the form. Give me the invitation so I can fill it out. So that, yes, I mean, just adding on to what you said, Mara, live event is the best way to sell. That's why I said, if you're launching a product or service, live event is the best way to do it, because you have multiple times and multiple ways to sell it live.
Yeah. And it's also much harder to sell a high ticket offer virtually. There's always been, and it may change now because everything has had to move to virtual, but there's always been a kind of a ceiling on the offer that gets made on webinars of around $2,000. You very seldom see a product or a service being offered beyond that. Beyond that, you've got to move them from virtual into a telephone call or a meeting or something like that. It's hard to sell during the event for more than about that kind of limit.
Yeah. The conversion. Yeah, exactly.
Sherrie, when I was running mastermind groups, it was plural. I had 3 mastermind groups. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What was the easiest way for me to get people to join our mastermind groups?
The easiest way that I saw work best is having them be present and physical at the events itself, the live events. They were always identified through different colored ribbons or t-shirts. You would announce them from stage saying, hey, who's in my VIP group? Stand up. These are the people you need to go out and seek and ask questions to, and then you would even have sessions. This is where I learned to teach my clients, was watching you, because you would have them come up on stage and do little mini masterminds and panels with them. And that was how you sold mastermind. I mean, if people were physically seeing you do this from stage with people and hearing them tell their success stories, then, you don't even have to get back up afterwards and try to sell it, because they've already sold it for you.
Right. And again, and Rob, I was, as we think about the book, okay, there were several people in that book who would bring people together for an event. And at the event, they would actually, they would ask them to join a higher level for them to be in. Okay. So, and you can never do it. There's no better way to do it than at a live event at a higher priced product. And okay, it doesn't have to be for a mastermind group, but just a higher level product. Okay. One of the interesting things about it is, and probably all of you probably have seen this, okay, at a live event, if you saw somebody selling a high priced product, okay, so let's say it's somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 per product. The number one reason people would buy it, if they see everybody else buying it, okay? They would run over to the back table because everybody else is buying it. This must be the right thing to buy it, okay? So, so it's not just about a mastermind group only. It's just where the place is at in order for people to say to themselves, yes, I should be buying this right now, okay?
Yeah. Can I add something else to that, Bill?
No.
The other advantage too of doing this live is, and I've done this a few times with clients, where they will see a need, and you actually did this before, I think, with Peak Performers, where you're selling something at the event and you're sitting, it gives you a time to sit back and kind of, appraise what's happening or figure out what's happening and evaluate what's happening in the audience. Well, I should have gotten more. I should have converted more. Why? Well, maybe I need to offer a different kind of offer. And you don't even have to offer together, but know that you have something else you can offer. And at a live event, it gives you that opportunity to do it and mention it. Say, hey, maybe you weren't ready for this yet. Maybe you're ready for something else. If I were to offer another level service or product or program for you, and you would have interest, do me a favor, go back to my staff, write your information down. We will be in touch with you later. And I mean, that way you're not leaving money on the table, right? So live events are another great way for you to really evaluate what the need is by watching what's happening in the audience for those people who you thought would have gotten up right away because they saw others get up and sign up for your program.
So what's the number one reason why people should actually have, well, no, let me change it differently. What's the number one reason why, if people are having their own events, what's the number one thing, the type of events they should have for their attendees? What's the number one reason for our attendees to actually be at an event?
To have the best way to implement what they've learned from you. So the number one reason that people should come, and that's where the proper marketing, the proper copywriting comes into play, is so that they're coming to your event because you have something that no one else can offer. You have a way for them to be able to implement what you've already taught them in a way that no one else can. So that's what people should be focusing on when they're creating their live event.
Right. So I'm going to say it a little differently, but almost the same answer.
Okay.
Is the number one reason why people will be excited about coming to an event is when they leave, they feel like they get great value by being there. Okay. And they say to themselves, had I not come, I never would have gotten that value that way. Okay.
Right.
Here's another kind of interesting question. Okay. And I think Sherry knows this as well. When's the best time to sell an event for the next event that they're having? What's the best time to do it for their next event?
It should be throughout the entire event. The way that it's done in the past is if your event is a 2-day event, you don't really say anything the first morning, of course. You never ever want to sell anything the first morning of your event, even if it's a 1-day event. It should all be strict content. So, if it's a 1-day event, then after lunch, have your offer there, talk about it from stage, trickle it throughout the breaks with your MC. If it's a 2-day event, then make sure the offer is there for them as soon as they come in that second morning. And even kind of talk about it, have your MC do a good job throughout the afternoon of the first day of how many people have gotten great value through here, through this event. Wouldn't you like to be at the next one? So it's consistently throughout the entire event. And so many people could say to me, Bill, well, I don't even know if I want to do an event again, or I don't know what the dates are. I don't know where it's going to be. I'm like, so you don't need to have that information. If you want to be very authentic about the fact that you don't know, let people know. I don't know when the dates are going to be yet. I don't know where it's going to be, but if you want to come, fill out the invitation form now so you're the first ones to get it. So hopefully that's the answer you were looking for, but that's what I teach my clients.
Right. It's the same thing with when we ran GLAZER Kennedy, okay, and as Sherry was sort of running the whole big events, okay, at the very end of the day, we would always say to people, by the way, has this been great value to you? And everybody would say, yeah. And then the next question would be, well, definitely you got to be there for the next event, because the next event we have some other presenters, and Bill and Dan are going to do different presentations next time, and you want to make sure you can get there as well. So if you sign up right now, you'll be able to get in there, because at the hotel that we'll have, you only have so many rooms for things. So in order to get your own room, you have to do it now. So by the end of the first day, we always sold 50% of the people that was coming to the next event, okay, which is a very strategic way and actually get more people to come to an event, okay? So, so I did say to you, and by the way, I don't want you to give me this thing yet, but I just want to remind everybody, okay? There's 2 reasons why people will connect with Sherrie, okay? And I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. I'm going to tell you that at the end, because that way I tease people in order they have to stay to the end to hear that, okay? But why don't we let people ask questions to Sherrie, and we'll answer any questions as well to all of our members that are right now on this particular Zoom call right now. So who's going to start that? Ask people they can ask questions.
I think everyone heard you, so if you have a question, you can just pop it in the chat. and Sherrie will. Sure, I'm not sure if you can see the questions, but I can read them off if we have any that come. Well,
Cedra says Sherrie is super smart.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cedra. I appreciate that. I've been around the block a while, 15 years, and learned from the best in the beginning, and have been able to continue learning from there.
I have a question, actually. I'll ask one while we're waiting for some other ones. So if our audience is thinking about doing a live event after this whole coronavirus thing has come to an end, when should they start planning that? / is it too soon to start even thinking about booking hotel dates and all that type of stuff, or should they be waiting for that? And how do they approach that if, for whatever reason, this whole quarantine lasts way longer than any of us ever anticipated?
Great question, and I have a long-winded answer that I'll try to summarize it up as possible. First of all, they shouldn't wait. You should use this downtime to really strategize how effectively you can market your event when the time comes to market it, as well as provide the best content as possible and planning it out. So as you're figuring out what your content is going to be about, so purpose with purpose, right? What's the purpose of having the event? Using this time to really strategize what that looks like, so that, because what happens a lot, right? Going back to before all this happened, people wanted to have an event as quickly as they could because they wanted to be the first one out the door to have a live event in their industry. So they would have to hurry up, put the content together, book as many speakers as they could, try to get the dates that they could, and get the marketing out there. So they have to hurry, or they had to figure out when to plan it. Don't waste time now. Just because we can't really physically book a date yet, because we don't know when things are going to be live again, doesn't mean that you shouldn't start planning it out. So I would say use the time now wisely to strategically plan and think of how you could best put on the best experience and with the most content that's going to not only grow your business and your brand, but attract the most qualified attendees to your event, and use this time now wisely to kind of trickle it so that you're getting more and more people to want to come. As far as booking it, it really, none of us have a crystal ball on when the opportunity is going to be for us to book a live event. Yeah. But what I can say based on what I know is it's going to be at least early to late summer before the possibility of having a live event is happening, because so many hotels right now are on furlough. If it's a boutique hotel that you want to get into, they don't have the staffing or the budget to keep things open, so they've closed down temporarily. So it just all depends on logistically of where you want to have your event. But I will say that those hotels that are staying open want business. So now is the time to hire a professional who can go in and negotiate a really, really good contract for you on a later date. That, I know if I want to have it this year, let's try to put our heads together to figure out the best time to book that for, or ask the hotel, can I reserve, at least put it on hold. And so that when we know when we can go on, then we can sign it on the dotted line. So now is taking advantage of the time that hotels really, really want business. They're losing money like crazy right now because people they're canceling left and right instead of rebooking. So they're kind of open to it. So again, I wouldn't wait on the planning. I would strategically work on that right now so that use your time to advantage to reach out to speakers who are waiting to be booked. You might not have been able to get a speaker before, but maybe now they're open. And figuring out what your content is going to be, as well as the better way to just use this time now to virtually get in front of the audience so that you can attract more people now that you have the more time, so that you are the first one people come to when the gates open. Awesome.
Good answer.
So Sherrie, so because you work with a lot of clients, so if you have a client of yours and wants to do their next event, but they're concerned of when the dates they can actually do it with the event because they're not sure what's happening with COVID-19, okay? How are you able to help your clients to be able to do that in case they ever go back to the event and says, oh, nobody's coming? How do you handle it that way for a client?
Going back to what I said earlier, which is making sure that I work with my client to stay in front of their clients. So I can give you a great example. The one I'm working with right now, who has an event every 13 weeks, he is staying in front of his clients now more than ever and trying to help, because and also recognize, I mean, that's one thing that people are kind of timid about is, well, I don't want to talk about COVID-19 with my clients because it's negative. Well, don't talk about it in a negative way. Talk about it in a proactive way. Let's not be reactive to it. Let's be proactive to it. So we all recognize we're all in a place right now where quarantine is in place. We're losing business. You know, people are being affected by it health-wise. So going back to the old marketing styles of what's the solution? So what I'm doing is working with my clients now. What is the solution you can offer your clients right now that they may not be getting anywhere else, and work with them on a virtual basis so that when the live event happens, those people are not only going to want to be there, but they're going to want to bring people with them because you helped them through this crisis in a way that no one else stepped up to the plate to do.
Yeah. All right, we have some other questions that came in.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is from Sidra Gaines. And then after that, we've got one from our longtime friend, Rory Fat.
Rory.
So Sidra says, do you have any suggestions for creating a first event for a new coach?
Oh, I love that question. And that's actually what a lot of my clients come to me for, is they know they want to do an event, but they really have no idea where to start. So it's about the purpose, right? So Sidra, what I would suggest is you take the time to outline what your solution is for the people that you coach. So if you're a new coach, what is the solution that you are offering your people right now that can help them? And then we would figure out what is the purpose of having that live event. My suggestion would probably be an implementation event. So that means what you've been teaching your clients now, you would focus your topics and your content on that particular purpose, so that when they come to the event, they're kind of getting a group coaching from you, so that when they come home, like Bill said, they're leaving with great value because they've gotten some, not really technically one-on-one because they're in a live group setting, but they've gotten individual coaching from you. So maybe create like workshops, mastermind tables, where what you're delivering as a coach can be done in a group setting. And who knows, back to what I said earlier, you might be developing some new programs based on how that live event goes, based on the needs that your attendees are showing you and the value that you're giving them.
Great. All right, next up is Rory. So Rory says, I'm interested in what you recommend with virtual events, such as resources and sources.
There are so many different virtual platforms right now, and it's about what your needs are. The big thing that people are using because it's super simple and easy is Zoom. So if you're looking for something simple where you just need anywhere from 100 to 500, I think it's based on what you use, what type of account you have with Zoom, on the capacity of the number of attendees you can have. So you have that. The ability with Zoom is you get to have this interaction through chat. You can do breakout sessions where you can pre-assign people or assign people throughout the event where they can go off and have their own little mastermind, if you will, or breakout session based on a topic. There's other programs that I'm learning about. StreamYard, I think, is another one that you can use. Visibo is another company that came out with a new virtual platform, because everyone right now, if they haven't been in the virtual space before, wants to be part of it. You have to decide too what your budget is. There is other virtual platforms out there that are quite expensive. They could be anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. But if you plan on having lots of virtual events, then if you pay that fee, then you can have multiple virtual events that offer you many different ways, like green room sessions with your speakers, or not just break-off sessions, but actually having general session going on at the same time that breakouts are having on. So it just depends on what your particular needs are. And if you want, I can give information to Bill and Mara and Rob on the different platforms that I've learned about, so that you can go back to them afterwards and do some research.
That'd be awesome. We can share that with the recording when we send it out to all of our members.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Rory says that would be great. Sidra says that is incredible. Thank you. So those wrap up our questions for today, unless anyone else has one they want to pop in the chat, of course.
Well, but I know Rob has a question. So, how would you
I know,
ask?
I have an answer, Bill, but what's the question you want me to answer for people?
No, I mean, because think about it, Rob. Right now, I mean, I know even before you've been involved with the Alliance, you would have your own events, smaller events, things like that. Okay, and Mara, which was also interesting, was after both of us left our old company, you started to have your own event, okay? And you would always ask me to speak at your event, okay? And so I guess to both of your questions, both of you could ask questions to Sherry. So what's the biggest thing that you guys, when you were having your own events, what was the biggest thing that, number one, worked well for you? And what were the things that you wish you knew about? Let's try that approach.
Well, I'll start with it. And the big lesson I learned was when I ran my first events, I tried to do everything myself because it was a small event, 20 people. I thought that's fine. I can do everything. I had my wife there doing registration and things. I learned very quickly that even if you're only expecting 10 or 20 people, you still need a dedicated event organizer / team. And the times when I did have 2 or 3 people at the back handling everything for me, it went so much more smoothly, even with just a small number of people in the room. Because if you've only got one person there to help you, if that person is busy doing something, you have no help at all. And it helps. And I was lucky that I was connected to an event company in the UK. And that's the thing. You've got to have someone that knows how to run live events if you're going to run live events and you're going to have help in the room, because you want somebody who knows how to deal with the hotel. And the worst thing is if it is just you, if something happens with the hotel, and things do happen, you need someone to deal with it, and you can't because you're up on stage, so you can't go and arrange a change of time for the meal, and you can't arrange a room change for the evening sales presentation or whatever. So it really does help having an event organizer looking after things. And the same actually applied to the virtual events. When we did that virtual summit, we needed one other person there that was handling technology and making sure that everything was running smoothly in the background. We had Mara, who wasn't on camera, but she was there sitting a couple of feet away from you, who was making sure that everything worked. And there were a few times when Zoom, actually it wasn't Zoom that let us down, it was EverWebinar or whichever one it was we were using, Webinar Jam, that failed on the first day. And you and I were busy talking to the guests, and we couldn't handle those technology challenges. So whether it's a live event or a virtual event, you need an event organizer helping you to make things run smoothly.
Exactly. Yeah. To add to what you just said, Rob, with the virtual right now is having somebody. It's all about the experience, whether it's live or virtual. So in a virtual setting, it's even more important to make sure that the people that are watching and listening are having the best experience possible. So if they've got chat going, because that's their only way with the platform you're choosing, and no one is responding to them and no one is answering them, they're going to hop off because they're thinking, well, you're not paying attention to them. There's too many other people in the room. So if you've got someone dedicated to watch that, and even in chat, the one thing, Rory, for you to know if you don't know with Zoom, is you can personally respond to someone in chat so that not everyone else is seeing it. You just have to be careful that if you want everyone to see it, you got to go back down and change it back to everyone. But it's an opportunity while you're doing that, if you're using Zoom for virtual, is to have someone, like Rob said, dedicated to being that customer service related person and saying, oh, I see Rory asked a question, so I'm going to go in and personally message them. We got your question. If we don't get to it now, we will make sure that we follow up with you later. And like, oh, okay, someone's watching, someone's paying attention. So just make sure that you're doing that during this time.
there's something else to just add on top of that. It's like another layer of what Rob and Sherry were saying is if you are running your event and you're the main speaker of your event, and you also have to worry about the food, where people are going, the signage, all of the things, that the list is this big. I can't even stretch my arms that long. You're not focused on the things that you need to be doing and your revenue generating activities too, right? So if I'm running an event, if I'm hosting an event and I'm over here dealing with catering, my mind isn't in the place of, oh, I need to nail my content talks, oh, I need to nail my pitch, right? Or even looking at the audience saying, oh, I need to adjust this and do this, because you're preoccupied with other stuff. So that's another really important reason why you need help too.
Yeah. And you need someone who can look ahead for you, right? So while you're the host, like you said, Mara, just focusing on content and your deliverables and things like that and watching the audience to see if you got to adjust something, you need someone else on your team to be able to like, oh, there's people standing in the back of the room who should be sitting right now. I need to make sure that they grab a chair. And you as the host from the front of the room can't do that. And you certainly don't want to stop what you're saying by saying, hey, I see some people are sitting in the back of the room. Why don't you? Because now you got people looking back at the back of the room instead of looking at you. So you know, there's so many, like you said, it's a huge list of different logistical things that you as the host and the organizer should not be working or focusing on. You need to have a professional organizer on your behalf to do it for you, or someone on your team do it for you, and have the ability to think ahead. Like if you're looking at your time, you're like, oh, wait a minute, the schedule says we should be done by now, or we're going to be done in 10 minutes. And there's no way, because Mara still hasn't gotten to her pitch yet. I want to make sure that the hotel is prepared so that they're not interrupting us because they think we're done and they're coming in to clean up the room because we're not done yet. So you need people on your team that can think ahead and worry about that for you and take care of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So before, Sherrie, I'm going to ask you for that special offer for people. I have one more question to you, Sherrie. So, because I know throughout the years, people were thinking about running their own events, but they never run an event, okay?
Right.
And I would imagine that people have come to you and said, Sherrie, I'm thinking about running my event, but do you think I should? How would you answer that question?
For someone who has a question about whether they should be running their own event, I would always say think twice, even if you don't want to hire myself, because you need someone on your team that can handle the logistics for you. You know, a lot of people think, just like Rob said, even though it's 20 or 30 people, if you don't hire a professional who knows what to look for in a hotel contract, you could be spending thousands of dollars that you shouldn't be spending. I mean, Mara could speak on this because there was particular clauses that I negotiated on her behalf for her event years ago that it's kept her from having to pay union fees because the hotel was like, oh, right, remember that? Where they're like, oh, you need to use our union. I'm like, no, we don't. Look at the contract clause that Sherrie negotiated on behalf of Mara, and it saved her thousands. And they were like, but we have to. And I'm like, well, then take it up with your lawyer because we don't have to. So we wound up getting credit back to us because they've had to find a way to pay their union labor. So it was you having someone on your side to watch for those little clauses, especially now, you know, with what's happening with the hotels are losing money left and right. I guarantee you when this is all said and done, those particular clauses are going to change. The wording on it is going to change, and you're not going to understand what that means. And at the end of the day, you're winding up paying thousands of dollars to a hotel for no value. You didn't get anything else from them other than pain and aggravation. You could have been paying a planner who can negotiate on your behalf less than that and getting you money in return because they know what to ask for you. So to answer your question, Bill, I would not recommend anyone do it on their own. If they have to go about it on a low budget, there's ways to go about it on a low budget, but just don't cut your cost in a way that's going to cost you money or leave money on the table at the end.
Sherrie, have you ever talked to a prospect, let's call it a prospect, that you went back to them and said, no, you shouldn't have an event. Have you ever had that happen?
I have, because they have no idea what a budget means, right? So that's one of the top 3 questions I'm always asked is, what should I look out for in a budget? What's my budget look like? And I always have to, every time I'm getting asked a question, I almost always have to answer it with another question, because it's not a simple answer when it comes to an event. I mean, if you're looking to do a live event, and it should be for the purpose of growing your business and your brand, then it's not a one and done thing. Don't spend these thousands of dollars on a live event to get in front of people as an opportunity to sell them without the intention of thinking that it's going to grow your business. So when I have a conversation with a prospect, I ask particular questions. And if they say to me, look, I don't want to spend money on a professional audiovisual. I got my own team. I got my own company. And I'm like, well, what do they do for you on a daily basis? Well, they video record in my office. They have a couple of uplights and a nice camera, and they can video record me some great videos. I'm like, okay, well, how are they going to handle a live event? Well, what's the difference? If they've got those kind of answers, and I'm like, look, maybe right now is not the time for you to have a live event. What I suggest to them is to go to a live event and take a look around and look at it from a host standpoint, not from an attendee standpoint, and look at what they've got for AV, and look at what they're doing behind the scenes, and look at the equipment that the speakers are wearing and what is required for them to see what's happening on the screen. And then come back and say, okay, now I know what you're talking about, instead of just trying to understand and take my word for it.
All right, so now that I think we're actually 1 minute over time, okay, but that's okay.
Sorry.
Because since I teased everybody that they had to listen to the end, okay? So there's 2 ways people can actually connect with you, okay? So number 1 is, and I'll explain Sherry how to explain it, but one of them is to get a free time to talk to you, okay? And the other one is to actually go to your website to be able to connect to you on an ongoing basis for your business as well. So what are those 2 ways that people, and this is really, by the way, this isn't really more about for Sherry. This is for our members to be able to get this, okay? This is real value to our members, because so many of them want to run their own events anyway, but they're not sure if they want to have events. So what are the 2 ways that you would be able to connect to them, okay?
Yeah, so the first way that Bill talked about is a free 30-minute discovery call. So if you want to reach out to me and my email, it's sherrie@slseventplanning.com, SHERRIE at slseventplanning.com. Or if you go to my website and hit Let's Get Started tab, then we can connect and schedule a 30-minute no-charge call. And we'll do exactly what Bill said. We'll talk through what your intentions are. And at the end of it, you can decide, or I can let you know if you're ready to have an event or not, or maybe give you suggestions on what you should think about and do next. The other option is if they know they really want to do an event, but they just don't know what to do or how to get started, then we could schedule a 1-hour startup call for $99. And then we could talk through what that looks like, what the purpose of the event is, and then at the end of it, decide what is the next best step. And whatever that next best step is, that $99 is a deposit towards that investment.
There you go. So again, I guess I'm talking right now to all of our members, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, if you really have a business and you're doing it outrageously, okay, your business, okay, eventually you want to have your own events, okay? And it's very nice that Sherry gives people 2 options. One of them is do a 30-minute call with Sherry for free, okay? And then at that point, you can decide, both Sherry and whoever you are will decide if they want to go forward with this or not, okay? Or the second option is you could actually schedule a 1 hour with Sherry, okay? And that's just for $99. At that point, if they want the people to continue to run their events, that $99 will go towards actually Sherry helping them to run that event, okay? So there's 2 ways to do that. And by the way, that was the best offer we ever gave to anybody on our calls, okay? Because basically, if you want to first just talk to Sherry for free for 30 minutes, you get that option, okay? So again, I want to thank Sherry and everybody else for being on this call. with us, okay? And who's going to end this right now? Who runs the Zoom thing?
I guess I'm the one technically who has to end it. So, Sherry, thanks for being here. It's good to chat with you again. I got to chat with you twice this week.
Yeah.
That's unusual. I like it. And then for everybody else who's watching, so next week, this coming week on Thursday, same time, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, we will have Rob doing our April campaign critique call. So on Monday, make sure you watch out for the email with the link where you can submit your campaign so that Rob can critique that live on the call with you. All right. Well, we hope everyone stays safe, stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.